Wow, The Sandman was just absolutely incredible. Easily one of the best shows of 2022 so far. It just got better and better, and we just need that season 2 announcement ASAP. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Lifestyle Critic. I hope you're having a brilliant day. So in this video, we are going to be reviewing Netflix's The Sandman, which is a supernatural fantasy drama series based on the awesome comic book series from Neil Gaiman. And it really should have been on HBO Max, especially as A, it's a DC property, and B, it's just so good. It's really interesting as it's been in development hell for a number of years, as originally at one point in time, it was going to be a movie directed and starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and then it was going to be a TV series. Obviously there is so much material and is better told as a series, as we now know, but due to a lot of creative differences, this was in limbo for so long. And then, because it's such an expensive TV series, they weren't sure which network to put it on, but Netflix stepped up to the plate and grabbed it straight away. And on that point, if they don't commission a season 2, then maybe another network will take it up. But I'm just really hopeful for that. And I just loved season 1. I just loved all of the superhero aspects. But more than that, even the supernatural aspects. I thought it was really cool how they had mini stories in all of the episodes while still having this overarching bigger end of the universe storyline. It also had DC's quintessential dark and gritty vibe to it, and just the concept of dreams and imagination is just so incredible. You can be so creative with it, and you can also be pretty philosophical with it as well. And I just feel like this series just maximized both of those so well. And I also loved how they teased a little bit at the end, and a little bit sprinkled across this series, which is the in-rivalry and the jealousy and the relationship tensions between all of the super beings known as the Endless. So like I said, can't wait for season 2, but I just also cannot wait to break season 1 with you in this video review. So the entire series and all of the storylines are centering around the fascinating and fantastical lead character, the awesome lead character of Dream/Morpheus, who is a personification of a metaphysical entity, and there are loads of other beings like this as well, known as the Endless. And I just loved all of the intricate mini storytelling, which was just such a wicked little mini movie in each episode, while still having this massive end of the universe battle storyline in the background. So let's go through all of the mini storylines now. So the first opening storyline was of course the capture of the Dream character in a bit of a ritualistic situation, a very similar one actually to the first season of The Runaways. And he was stuck for 100 years in this glass sphere and didn't say a word, yet was such a powerful presence. And I just loved it how immediately with the series they are really showing how dark and twisted humans can be and how abusive they can be as well, and really only looking at things from their own selfish point of view. I mean, they did show that the reason that the guy captured Dream in the first place is through an emotional desire to want to see his dead son again, but obviously his actions don't justify this, but yet he was able to still use and abuse Dream's powers as well, mainly the Dreamstone Ruby power. And I quite like how the series was showing that these powers are just too much for humans, as it obviously then led to a bit of an epidemic in terms of a sleep sickness taking over a lot of people. So I feel like the first episode just kicked off this series really well, and then eventually when Dream did get out of it, I quite liked how over the next 10 episodes he was rebuilding the dreaming, and such a far cry from how incredible and illustrious it seems in the first couple of moments when you even see the dreaming, to the destruction that Dream then went back to. And even though again, like, he didn't say anything, you can just feel his heart breaking, as obviously this is his world, this is his dominion, and he's just seen it being completely ruined, and now just wants to rebuild it. And as we saw in the final couple of moments in episode 10, he has made it even better than it originally was, which I thought was a really nice touch. I loved his partnership with Joanna Constantine. I thought Jenna Coleman was so good in this role and really did help him retrieve all of his objects. And Constantine is the perfect character to work with Dream, as they are both supernatural based characters, and I love the way in which they all interact in the comic books. I mean, it would be cool to see John Constantine with the Dreamer character, but I did like the gender flip that they did do, as it was pretty successful. And then episode 3, the true horror episode. I mean, all of the episodes definitely did have a bit of a thriller aspect to it, but episode 3 was the most chilling and the most uncomfortable, and it was really interesting as it was mainly just dedicated in this one diner, yet we were able to see how dark humans can be. And the John D character was just so dark in and of himself. Obviously in the comic books he then goes on to become Dr. Destiny, and when we originally see him he is supposed to be in Arkham Asylum, but obviously they didn't want to have too many DC references, as they did want to have the Sandman being contained in its own universe. Even though Dream only came at the end of the episode, I think what he was saying was so powerful, which is the cost of everybody realizing their truth and their desires, but without true hope and dreams, then this is going to be fully deteriorated, as pretty much every single character died in that episode, which is just so mind-blowing. The next episode did have a slightly lighter touch, even though it was still based on death, as we saw the personification of death in this episode, and it was just really, really emotional just seeing people at the end of their lives, and also seeing the growth in the Dream character, which I was really impressed with actually, as Dream is a pretty arrogant character in the comic books, yet in this depiction they did show he was a little bit like that in the beginning, and you do hear about him being like that even more. Free is captured for 100 years, so he's a bit of a know-it-all, yet a human character was able to teach him and educate him a lot in terms of their meeting every 100 years. And I thought that storyline was really, really wicked. Definitely did have a Shakespearean angle to it. And I loved it when they even did meet Shakespeare in there. I thought the representation of hell was really, really chilling. Definitely felt very similar to the Netherrealm in Mortal Kombat. And I thought it was really cool how the Dream character had a bit of a relationship with Lucifer, which we're obviously going to see loads more of in season 2. The battle with Corinthian was so good. I love that story arc. In terms of this is Dream's creation that is now fully turning against him, and just even now wants to kill him as well. I know Dream was talking about how disappointed he is in Corinthian because of all of this, but I would have loved that emotional beat to have gone on it for a little bit longer. I love the Rose Walker character, love the concept of a vortex that could literally destroy the entire universe, and this has actually happened in the past as well, and how both Corinthian and Dream are both after this character, and are both whispering things into Rose Walker, yet this character was so strong in and of herself that she was able to push both of these super beings and just make the right decision for herself. And as Dream has been so hell-bent in terms of focusing on trying to solve all of this stuff, he didn't even realise, as it was quite hard to realise to his credit, that Desire was the person that was just manipulating all of this stuff. So I feel like that's a really interesting human lesson actually, in terms of sometimes when you can be so narrow-minded, you can ignore things that are happening within the wider space that really you should be focusing on instead. So it was fascinating storytelling when they were showing the abusive father against the Jeb character, who is just torturing this character just so that he can get $800 a month. There has been a lot of news about care home workers abusing elderly patients, so I thought it was just so emotional seeing this also happening from a foster care point of view. Lyta's pregnancy was obviously a bit of new creation being developed, and also a bit of a tease of the worlds being merged, which I'm sure they'll go back to next season. And then we had the bonus episode, episode 11, which I thought was so good, as obviously the first 10 episodes were so wicked, and this accompanied it really, really well, and also telling us a lot more about the Dream character's background, but not necessarily involved in the wider plot, which I thought was really, really cool. And the cat mini storyline I thought was really, really intriguing, in terms of in the past, cats used to be a lot bigger than humans, but humans' dreams and collective power allowed them to grow. And I thought it was really dark. The final image that you see in this mini episode is the cat dreaming of killing humans again in the future. And the second episode was so good as well. And it did show in a very similar way, harking back to the first episode of this season, just how dark humans can be. As the Richard Maddock character in the beginning was a bit of a nice guy, yet he was torturing and kidnapping and trapping this Muse character, and then when Dream found out about it, just the destruction he was able to cause, I thought was so fascinating. So all of those storylines were so good, but I feel like we can still deep dive even further. So from a positives point of view, like I said earlier on, I loved all of the superhero and supernatural blend in this series. I feel like it started off so well and just continued getting better and better. And I think the concept of dreams is just so fascinating in and of itself, and the way in which it's just imaginated so fantastically across this series is just so good, so fantastical, so many lessons that people can learn, and just really shows the good and the dark side of humans. Absolutely loved all of the twists and turns. I thought all of the character representations were really, really good, and loved the self-contained mini storytelling, along with an overarching storyline happening in the background. So I love the Sandman. However, from a negatives point of view, I feel like he refound his object so quickly, and I feel like they could have easily extended that storyline for a couple more episodes and just added a lot more danger in terms of humans misusing this, which I thought could have been really, really cool. But I guess they wanted to show how powerful the Morpheus character really is in terms of quickly getting everything back. I was a little bit gutted that the Dreamstone was destroyed. I mean, I understand why, as obviously for so long it's been in the wrong hands. But I thought it would have been really, really cool in terms of humans making other dreams come true in a different way to how John Dee did it. And I also thought they could have had a bigger impact with the sleep sickness. I know they kind of did it at the end with Entity's Vortex character right at the end of this series, but they definitely could have done a little bit more. But you know, only a couple of nitpicks, as for the vast majority, I have to say from a storyline perspective, this series was absolutely incredible. So from a cast and characters point of view, Netflix's The Sandman was just so good. All of the cast members just played all of their characters so well. So let's go through them one by one. So first up, of course, we have Tom Sturridge, who was just so perfect, quite literally born to play the Dream and Morpheus character. I just feel like it was so lifted and shifted from the comic books into live action. The TV series was just so brilliantly representing this character. And Tom just played him in such a good way, as he was just so stoic. You could really feel his presence. He was a true super being. And I absolutely loved his growth from the beginning of this series to where he is now, as his ego really has gone in check, mainly from human characters, but also from a couple of other super beings as well. So he's learned a lot of humility, he's learned to value other people, he's learned to look at things from another perspective, he's grown in terms of not needing to be a know-it-all, and also to rely on other people and not to put so much pressure on yourself, which, like I said, there are so many good lessons that you can learn in this series. And I just love dreams and imagination and just going into another reality, so I just think in and of himself he's such a fascinating character. And like I said, Tom Sturridge just played him in such a cool way, and you yourself want to enter into the dreaming and just be part of this magical, fantastical world. And of course, there are all those dark characters out there, so I thought it was really, really cool how they really showed that the Dream Morpheus character still wasn't perfect, even though in the beginning, in an arrogant way, he definitely did think he was. And yet, because of this, he was able to be manipulated, and on a number of occasions, nearly lost everything. So I just feel like I said, you know, he was such a cool character, a really layered character, and a really powerful one as well. Next up we have Boyd Holbrook playing the Corinthian character, and I love this character from a conceptual point of view. In terms of Dream created him to cause nightmares to people, and he kind of wants more from life, and so escapes this world, enters into the real world, takes advantage of the fact that Dream is captured, and even gave the human advice on how to ensure that Dream doesn't get out of this situation, and then was just happy to cause absolute chaos and anarchy across the world, and really leading in a manipulative and terrifying way. And I love how Dream kind of went on his level to be able to ultimately defeat him. I would have loved a little bit more tension in terms of the battle when Dream was able to be hurt by the Corinthian character, but ultimately I do feel like Boyd Holbrook was just born to play these devilish bad boy characters, as he just exudes them really, really well. Next up we have Jenna Coleman, and I am such a big fan of hers from the early Doctor Who days, and in this series she is playing the Joanna Constantine character, and a really edgy version of this character, obviously gender flipped into a female version, but she is equally really, really headstrong, love the supernatural world and relationship that she is able to have with the Dream character instantly, because they have a bit of a connection through this, and does have all of the core characteristics that make up the John Constantine character. I was a little bit gutted that we didn't get to see John and Dream, as they are such an iconic duo in the comic books, but that being said, I feel like they were able to make it work with Joanna as well, and maybe it did seem like a little bit of a backdoor opening for a spin-off series with this character. Love the Lucienne character, the librarian who is super loyal and was the only person that was staying in the dreaming and keeping it all running while Dream was captured. And I love their relationship across this series, as firstly they are really, really close as boss and employee. And I do think that Dream respects her, but he doesn't necessarily value her in the way that he should do. But by the end of this series, he definitely did learn that, and then gave her a little bit of a promotion, which I thought was such a nice touch and really does show that the Dream character is growing so much. We've also got Patton Oswalt playing Matthew the Raven. He didn't do that much in this series, but definitely was another loyal character to Dream, and I did feel like Patton Oswalt, as always, just had some wicked witty one-liners. David Thewlis was another truly fascinating character. It really does show the corruption of mankind, especially when they get a lot of power and how it can really go to their head, and they can misuse this power and abuse it and destroy people as well. And this character was the closest in terms of having a wider DC connection in this universe, as this character does go on to become Dr. Destiny in the comic books, and the place in which he is at the beginning of this series is actually an Arkham Asylum. But like I said, they didn't want to reference that, as they did want to have this self-contained in the Sandman universe. But I just feel like this character was just so creepy and absolutely does put a chill down your spine. We've also got Gwendoline Christie from Game of Thrones playing the Lucifer Morningstar character. Obviously an evil character, but definitely does have fallen angel qualities about her. I know they did consider having Tom Ellis play this character, which could have been so good and really could have connected both TV shows. If you thought you recognized the actor voicing the Pumpkin character, then you are not wrong, as it was Mark Hamill, the legendary Mark Hamill, the brilliant voice actor and physical actor Mark Hamill was voicing that character, which I thought was really, really wicked. And we also have Kirby Howell-Baptiste playing Death, and really did humanize the Dream character, and it was such an emotional episode. like I said earlier on, when you see people at the end of their lives, and death was such a happy face for them to be transitioned into their new realm. I thought Rose Walker was a really, really wicked character and so pivotal, especially in the final couple of episodes of the series. And this character has gone through so much and really does feel alone and isolated, and really is pretty inspiring and a little bit of a role model actually, in terms of another thing people can learn from this character in terms of really persevering and trying to continue, and there will be light at the end of the tunnel. And in some ways she was a little bit like the eyes and ears for the audience in the second half of this series. And I also love the storyline with Jed Walker, her younger brother. It felt like a bit of a Jordan Peele movie in terms of this really abusive guy who was just trapping him and punishing him and just abusing him and using him to extract money out of him. And through his dreams, he is able to not only communicate with the Rose Walker character, but this is how he is coping with this horrible situation. And speaking of his dream, this is another bit of a DC reference, as his version of Sandman was going to go on a mission to fight the Pied Piper. Loved how they had a bit of biblical stuff in there as well with Abel and Cain, and loved that we saw other super beings as well, and they were teasing the wider Endless family, but really showing that desire and despair are going to be the next big bad villains in the next season. And love the fact that Desire was pulling all of the strings from the background for the second half of the series, and really does show that even with super beings, they still have human type emotions and in rivalry fighting from a sibling's perspective. And then finally, in the bonus episode, loved the Richard Maddock character. I thought he was so fascinating, especially as somebody who in the first instance is a little bit relatable, as he is just having writer's block and just wants to be successful, but is just constantly up against it in terms of banging his head against a brick wall. And then he gets this opportunity presented to him, which does seem like a little bit of a too good to be true scenario in terms of getting all of his dreams, but it does seem to be like a bit of a deal with the devil, as it does have a bit of a dark side to it as well. So it was really, really fascinating how they show that he does actually succumb to it, traps the Muse character for his own personal gain, and doesn't really care at all about her. And yet she is a super being as well, and he really underestimates what she is capable of doing. Love the fact that she shared a relationship in history with the Dream character, and they had a lost child as well. By the end of it, Richard Maddox still loses everything, and maybe if he didn't go down that road, he could have got everything, but it would have obviously endured a lot of hard work. So I think from a cast and character's point of view, the Sandman is just so brilliant. So The Sandman is a really expensive show, and it absolutely shows from a visuals perspective, as it is just so imaginative, so immersive, and just so incredible. So for example, the dreaming world is just so good. I would have loved it to have seen a little bit more in its heyday when it was just so fantastical, so magical. You do get to see a destroyed version of it in this series, and you do get to see it slowly being rebuilt as we progress through. And I really do feel like it is a true horror series as well, as there are some dark things that take place, and it really does show the evil stuff that humans can do and the corruption and manipulation that can really easily happen when there is a bit of a power abuse taking place. And of course, hell looks really terrifying as well. And I love the magical objects. For example, the Amulet of Protection, Constantine's weapons, and of course, Dream's incredible abilities to just transport people into the dreaming, put people into an eternal state of dreams, and of course the Ruby Dreamstone, which was literally capable of making anything a reality, and a little bit like Wanda's powers, really can transform reality as we know it. And it was just such a grand series. Loved all of the creatures as well, even though they are quite fantastical. You really can believe it as well. And I absolutely love the messages that they were having in terms of the power of dreams, and they can just be so creative with it. And I feel like they did do a really good job in terms of embracing this and really showing what life can and cannot be like with and without dreams. So I have to say, from a visuals perspective, the Sandman absolutely did not disappoint. So from a comparisons point of view, even though the Sandman is so individual and so in its own category, there are actually quite a lot of other things that you can compare it to. For example, Inception, which is all about entering into dreams and seeing a bit of a dream-like scenario. DC properties like Stargirl and the Arrowverse, of course, very different, but do share a bit of a DC connection. And of course, Lucifer and Constantine have their own TV shows, and I do love it how they featured their own versions in this one as well. And also really similar to the Chronicles of Narnia as well, in terms of entering into this other world where all of these magical creatures exist and a lot of darkness takes place as well. You can compare it to a lot of other Netflix TV shows as well, for example, Stranger Things, Lock and Key, American Gods, Good Omens, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Riverdale, The Boys, Supernatural, and also a little bit similar to Multiverse of Madness in terms of Wanda dream walking into somebody else's body and absolutely causing complete chaos. So from a comparisons point of view, even though the Sandman absolutely is its own individual thing, I feel like you can compare it to a lot of other shows and movies as well. So I thought the end of season 1 of The Sandman was really, really good. Firstly, showing that the Rose Walker character actually is a descendant and relation to Dream, and that Desire, Dream's sibling, was to destroy him, as in the rules with the Endless. If you kill somebody within your bloodline, then you yourself may well be destroyed. So I feel like Desire was really playing with fire. And then speaking of fire, Lucifer states that she wants to expand hell. So I feel like it is going to be so intriguing in terms of what will happen in season 2. Now, speaking of season 2, I feel like Lucifer's plan is going to be executed, and there are going to be a lot of things happening with Hell, as this is a big storyline arc in the comic books. So I feel like a lot of super beings are going to be brought into Hell. So I feel like it's going to be a really dark series and a lot of fights taking place, and maybe certain super being characters dying, and a lot more continued infighting with a lot of the Endless family. I would love to see a lot more members as well. Maybe even Destiny could make an appearance. And of course, we'll have more intricate mini storylines taking place, and I feel like a lot of the secondary characters will become big main characters, and the rebuilding of the Dreaming World. I just cannot wait for season 2, as it's just going to be so awesome. So overall, I'm sure you can tell I absolutely love season 1 of The Sandman. I thought it was such a brilliant series, such a big grand series. And every single episode was just so good, literally hooked me in straight from the beginning. And I just couldn't get enough of this whole world. I thought it was so incredible. Loved the fantasy aspects of the dreaming, the true layered characters, and the true dark capabilities of what these characters are able to do. And the characters all had such presence. I mean, Dream was just such a phenomenal lead character. Tom Sturridge just absolutely smashed it. And you really can feel the fact that he's burdened with such responsibility, yet has got such incredible powers and is able to use it really, really well. Sometimes in these magical fantasy supernatural shows, characters have got wicked powers, but they don't really use it that much. Yet Dream was using it so much in pretty much every single episode, which was so wicked. And it was a true multi-genre series. So many different genres contained within this series. And when other shows and films do this, it can feel a little bit too much, but somehow it works really, really well here. I think they made the absolute right decision in terms of making The Sandman a series, as they would have been considerably limited in scope if they had gone down the movie route, as they just made it work so well as a series. And then speaking of limitations, I feel like you can really tell that at the start of this series, they were filming while COVID regulations were a lot higher. But then as the series progressed, especially that sequence where Corinthian is speaking to a whole room of people, then obviously the regulations were reducing by then. So I think it's a massive achievement, the fact that they were able to film this entire incredible series during COVID. And like I said before, I just think the concept and the power of dreams was just realized on such an incredible level in this series, and so for all of those reasons, I have to give it a massive 8.5 out of 10. Now I'd love to hear from you. What did you think of The Sandman? Please let me know in the comment section below. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in my next video.